O come, Emmanuel. I want to speak about this carol and its ancient history. Its ancient history. Like some other carols, it first appeared in Latin. The earliest copy dates back to 1710, but it is thought that it was perhaps actually written in the 12th century. That's a good while ago, but the words go back further even than that. For the carol is based on prayers, the O antiphons, recited from the 17th to the 23rd of December during certain church services. These prayers are very, very old, dating back, say some, to the 6th or 7th or 8th century. There are 7 prayers in this collection, but there were only 5 verses in the Latin carol. A John Mason Neale translated these 5 verses of the carol into English in 1861. 2 further verses were added in 1916. And so that's the story behind the words. And there's also a story behind the tune. Scholars tell us that the tune is from the 15th century. It was a chant, a processional chant, used in burial services. And so that's the carol and its ancient history. This is likely to be the oldest carol that is still sung. But secondly, I want to speak about the carol and its accurate theology. I'm sure you realise that not every song sung at Christmas time is biblical. There are those that are just songs. They would not claim to be carols. But even some of the carols that celebrate the birth of the Lord Jesus are not completely biblical. And it would be possible to make a list, quite a list, of inaccuracies that appear in Christmas carols. But our carol is sound theologically. Each verse is addressed to the Lord Jesus. Each verse uses a different title for him. And these titles all come from the Bible, largely from one particular book in the Bible, the Old Testament book of Isaiah. In verse 1, Emmanuel, says Isaiah 7, "Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel." In verse 2, "Thou rod of Jesse," says Isaiah 11, "There shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots." In verse 3, "Thou dayspring." The expression dayspring from on high comes from the words of Zacharias after the birth of his son John. "The dayspring from on high hath visited us to give light to them that sit in darkness and in the shadow of death." But again, there's a connection with Isaiah. Says Isaiah 9, "The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined." In verse 4, "Thou key of David," says Isaiah 22, "The key of the house of David will I lay upon his shoulder. So he shall open and none shall shut, and he shall shut and none shall open." In verse 5, "Adonai, Lord of might, the great lawgiver," says Isaiah 33, "The Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king." In verse 6, "Thou wisdom," and we're back at Isaiah 11, "The Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding." In verse 7, "The desire of nations." This is Haggai 2 and 7, "I will shake all nations, and the desire of all nations shall come." And so do you see the carol and its accurate theology. But thirdly, I want to speak about the carol and its amazing prophecy. Old Testament prophets did 2 things. They foretold and they foretold. They foretold. They told forth. They delivered a message for their own day. But they also foretold. They predicted what would happen in a later day. Now, in so many of the Old Testament books, there are pictures and prophecies of Christ. The Lord Jesus himself made that point as he walked the Emmaus Road in Luke 24, beginning at Moses and all the prophets. He expounded unto them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. This is especially the case with Isaiah. He has been called the fifth evangelist, and his book has been called the fifth gospel. A great preacher of a past day, F.B. Meyer, wrote a lovely book called Christ in Isaiah. Isaiah spoke of the coming of one who would be son and servant and sufferer and sovereign. And you can imagine those who were living at the time of Christ's birth using the language of Isaiah as they looked, as they longed for their Messiah. The last two lines of each verse in the carol are, "Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel." And does that not describe the emotions of the man and then the woman we meet at the end of Luke chapter 2? The man, the old man, Simeon, in the temple took the infant Christ in his arms and blessed God. "Mine eyes have seen thy salvation." And then the woman, the old woman, Anna, gave thanks likewise unto the Lord and spake of him to all that looked for redemption in Jerusalem. The words of the carol express the sentiments of those who were waiting for Christ to come, but the carol can still be sung, and sung truthfully by us, because we are waiting for Christ to come again. The Lord Jesus came to deal with sin and Satan and death and the grave, and those enemies have been defeated, but their defeat is not yet complete. Here's a lovely quote from John Piper. "The down payment is in the bank. The first fruits of the harvest are in the barn. The future is sure. The joy is great, but the end is not yet. Death still snatches away. Disease still makes us miserable. Calamity still strikes. Satan still prowls. Flesh still wars against the spirit. Sin still indwells." In the words of Romans 8, we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain until now. And not only they, but ourselves also, which have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of our body. Evidence of the curse still exists all around us. This is still, obviously, a fallen creation, a blighted star, but better days are ahead for this world. The Bible speaks about a day when the Lord Jesus will return to this earth to set up his perfect kingdom. Just as Israel looked ahead to the first coming of Christ, we look ahead to his second coming. And so in this carol, there is amazing prophecy. But there's more. Remember I said that each of the antiphons, each was sung between the 17th and the 23rd of December. Look at this slide again and take the first letter of each title of Christ. S-A-R-C-O-R-E. Now reverse the order and you have two words. Ero, cras. Ero, cras. And that Latin expression means this: I will be present tomorrow, or tomorrow I will come. Day by day, these prayers, these ancient prayers, were repeated in the days before Christmas. And when the prayers were all concluded, Christmas came. But the message of the Christ to this weary, war-torn world is, I will come. And so a carol with its origins in the distant past has a message for us in the present about a glorious future.